Men of reason, seekers of truth, hear me, you awaken each day granted but one certainty, that the sun shall set, and with it, this day shall be no more. What is a day but a life in miniature? Dawn is birth, midday is vigor, and evening is the final descent. You are not promised another rising, you are not owed the privilege of seeing tomorrow, so I ask you, how shall you use these 24 hours? Will you squander them in idle talk, in the pursuit of vain pleasures, in complaints against fortune? Will you let your soul be burdened by anger, envy, or the foolish expectation that the world must bend to your desires? Or will you, like a wise and noble man, take hold of this fleeting gift and live? Consider, if you were to die at nightfall, would your works be worthy of remembrance? Would your deeds reflect the nature of one who has lived with wisdom and strength? Or would they reveal a mind distracted, a spirit untrained, a man who allowed himself to drift, pulled by the whims of others? No emperor commands time, no wealth can purchase another hour, and no prayer will call back what is lost. The only power you have is over this moment. Do what is just, speak what is true, endure what must be endured. Do not defer virtue to another day. Do not wait to be courageous, to be kind, to be disciplined, to be wise. The man who says, "Tomorrow I shall live as I ought," speaks as a fool, for what is tomorrow? A shadow, a whisper of the mind. But today is real, this hour is yours. Live as if you were already dead, and in doing so, you will finally be alive. You awaken to the rising sun, and with it, the sands of your time begin to slip away. Every breath you take is a moment gone, never to return. The present is all you possess, yet men live as if they are owed an eternity. They waste the hours in trivial pursuits, postponing wisdom, delaying action, believing there will always be another chance. But who has made this promise to them? Who among us has been assured another sunrise? A day is brief, yet within it lies the full measure of a life. The man who waits, who hesitates, who spends his hours in idleness, lives no differently than the dead. He concerns himself with what is beyond his control, of fortune, reputation, the opinions of others, so while the time that is his to command slips through his fingers, he does not realize the great deception he is under, that he has time enough to waste. How often have you said, "Tomorrow, I will begin," only to find tomorrow stolen away? How often have you put off discipline, courage, or justice, believing there will be another occasion to act? Foolishness. The wise man does not wait for the perfect moment, he makes every moment serve its purpose. He does not lament the past nor fear the future, he rules over the present, shaping it with his own hands. Do not allow yourself to be distracted by the trivial and the meaningless. What value is there in gossip, in envy, in chasing the favor of those who do not know their own minds? These things devour your time, leaving you with nothing but regret. A man who understands the brevity of life does not squander his days in resentment or complaint. He does not indulge in the luxury of delay. He rises with purpose, knowing that his life is measured not in years but in the weight of his actions. Each moment asks you a question. Will you use it well? Will you act as a man of reason and virtue, or will you let it slip past you, lost to hesitation and weakness? What prevents you from living fully, from seizing the hours before you? Is it fear? Then remember death comes regardless. Is it comfort? Then recall ease as the companion of decay. The only true possession you have is this moment, and the only certainty is that it is passing. To waste time is to betray yourself, to reject the life that is given to you. Those who live wisely understand that they do not have time to waste in anger or self-pity. They do not concern themselves with things outside their power. They rise each day with clarity, knowing that they must act, must think, must strive, for they are running a race with no guarantee of another lap. A single day is enough for greatness if it is lived with purpose. The hours you have now are more precious than gold, for they cannot be replaced. A man who understands this does not postpone his duty, his virtue, or his life. If you knew that this day was your last, would you still postpone what is right? Would you delay justice, waiting for a more convenient time? Would you hesitate to speak the truth, fearing what others might think? Would you cower in the face of challenge, hoping for a moment when courage would come easily? Would you put off wisdom, thinking that there is still time to learn? Such delays are the habits of those who believe they are promised another day, But the wise man knows that virtue cannot wait. Justice is not a thing to be considered later, when it suits you, when you are comfortable, when you are ready. It is the duty of the moment. If you see what is wrong and do nothing, you have already sided with the unjust. If you know what is right and refuse to act, you have betrayed yourself. Many men imagine that they will correct their course in time, that one day they will become fair, disciplined, and strong. But what is this day they await? It is a phantom, always receding, always just beyond their grasp. Justice is not a future ambition, it is an immediate necessity. Truth is no different. You hesitate to speak it, afraid of consequence. But what is more dangerous than a life lived in lies? You think that there will be a better time to be honest, a moment when the risk is less, when the world is more receptive. Yet the world does not change, and the longer you remain silent, the more difficult it becomes to speak. Truth must be practiced in every hour, not stored away for a distant occasion. The man who waits for the right time to be honest will find that time never arrives. Courage cannot be scheduled, nor can it be borrowed from tomorrow. The obstacles before you will not disappear simply because you refuse to face them. The fears that hold you back will not release you if you continue to surrender to them. A man who wishes to be brave someday will never be brave at all. He will die a coward, forever waiting for strength that never comes. Courage is not a feeling to be awaited, it is a decision to be made, and it must be made now. Wisdom is no different from these. How often have you thought, I will take time to reflect, to study, to seek understanding, but not yet, not today. You push away the pursuit of wisdom as if it is something you can collect at leisure, as if the mind will sharpen itself without effort. But time does not wait, and neither does ignorance. The lessons you neglect today will not teach themselves to you tomorrow. The blind man who refuses to open his eyes does not gain sight with time, he merely stumbles further into darkness. The clock does not pause for you. The hours before you are all you have. If you delay justice, you are unjust. If you delay truth, you are false. If you delay courage, you are weak. If you delay wisdom, you are a fool. A man who understands the value of time does not surrender his hours to idle distractions. Yet, how many waste their days in complaints, envying what others possess, or chasing vanity as if it will grant them meaning. They do not see that each moment spent in these pursuits is a moment lost, a step toward death with nothing gained. They lament their circumstances, wishing them different, but do not act. They resent the fortune of others, poisoning their own hearts. They seek admiration, as if being noticed by men will make them more than they are. But all these things are illusions, and to give them time is to surrender life itself. A man who complains believes himself to be a victim of fate. He looks at his difficulties and speaks of how unfairly he has been treated. He blames the world, the gods, his fellow men, but never himself. He does not ask, "What can I do?" but instead cries, "Why has this happened to me?" Yet does his complaining change what is? Do his words undo misfortune? He wastes his breath, his thoughts, his very existence on what he cannot control. Meanwhile, the man of wisdom sees the same hardships and remains silent, turning instead to action. He knows that speaking of misfortune does not cure it, but effort may yet carve a path forward. Envy is no less destructive. The envious man looks upon another's success and feels cheated, as if another's gain is his loss. He burns within himself, resenting what he does not have. But does envy bring him closer to his desires? No, it only deepens his suffering. The time he spends envying is time he could have spent in labor, in discipline, in bettering himself. The wise man does not envy, he learns. He sees in others what is possible and asks, "What must I do to achieve the same?" But the fool only sees, doing nothing, wasting his short life in bitterness. Vanity is the most hollow of distractions. The man who seeks admiration from others believes that being seen as great is the same as being great. He dresses himself in the appearance of virtue, but does a man possesses nothing but the present moment. The past is gone, beyond his reach, unchangeable no matter how much he dwells upon it. The future is uncertain, a mere possibility, a vision that may never come to pass. Yet, men live as if they have dominion over both. They lament what has been, as if regret could alter what is written. They worry over what is to come, as if anxiety could shape the course of fate. But the past does not listen, and the future is deaf to their concerns. The only moment that obeys is the one before them now. Some waste their hours wishing they could relive the past, replaying their mistakes, mourning their losses, believing that if they think long enough, they might somehow change what has already passed. Others spend their days in expectation, believing that real life has not yet begun, that their chance will come later, that tomorrow will be the time for action. But what is this tomorrow they wait for? Have they not noticed that every tomorrow becomes today, and every today slips quickly into yesterday? They do not live, but merely wait to live. To master the present is to understand that this moment is the only one that belongs to you. What is before you now is all that exists, and it demands your full attention. If there is work to be done, do it now. If there is truth to be spoken, speak it now. If there is discipline to be practiced, begin it now. The man who says, "I will start later," is the man who never starts at all. The only time to act is now, for nothing else is guaranteed. Many men wait for perfect conditions, telling themselves that they will act when the time is right, when they feel ready, when the circumstances align in their favor. They believe that someday they will be strong, someday they will be wise, someday they will live as they should. But what is this someday? It is a ghost, forever retreating, never arriving. The wise man does not concern himself with ideal conditions, he takes what is before him and does what must be done. If the conditions are difficult, he strengthens himself. If the path is unclear, he takes a step forward. He does not wait for time to favor him, he bends time to his will. To waste the present is to waste life itself. A man may have years ahead of him, but if he never masters the moment before him, those years will slip away, leaving him with nothing but regret. He will look back and see a life spent in hesitation, in distraction, in the foolish belief that time was his to command. But time bows to no man. It moves forward without pause, indifferent to whether he chooses to use it well or let it pass him by. The man who understands this does not delay, does not falter, does not squander the gift of now. If you were to die tonight, would you have lived as you ought? Would your actions today be worthy of remembrance, or would they be filled with hesitation, distraction, and fear? Men go about their days as if life is infinite, as if time is an endless well from which they can draw at leisure. They make plans for distant years, speaking of what they will do, how they will change, how they will finally live later. But later is an illusion, later is a lie. The only certainty is now. A man who understands that he is already dead walks the earth with a different mind. He does not concern himself with trivial matters. He does not waste time on grudges, on empty desires, on the fleeting opinions of others. He has nothing to lose, because he knows all is already lost. He moves with purpose, because there is no promise of tomorrow. He does not hesitate, because hesitation is a luxury for those who believe they have time to spare. Fear vanishes in the face of death. A man who knows he will die does not fear failure, for what is failure to the dead? He does not fear rejection, for what does the dead man care of another's judgment? He does not fear hardship, for suffering ends soon enough, and dignity in suffering is a man's final victory. It is the living who live as cowards, trembling over things that do not matter, delaying action as if delay can bargain with fate. The dead man, in contrast, is free. Consider how often you hold back. You do not speak the truth because you fear consequence. You do not act boldly because you fear loss. You do not embrace discipline because you fear discomfort. But if death is already upon you, what is there to fear? There is nothing left to lose except the opportunity to live rightly in the time that remains. The man who lives as if he is already dead does not wait for permission to act. He does not ask for approval to be who he is meant to be. He simply moves, speaks, and lives with the full weight of his existence. Each morning, remind yourself that you have already died. Anything given to you beyond this moment is a gift. If you wake, it is not owed to you, it is a final breath before the inevitable. Will you spend it in hesitation? Will you waste it on complaints, on envy, on seeking the admiration of men who will also turn to dust? Or will you take it and use it as one who has nothing to fear? When a man accepts his mortality, he no longer clings to what is small. He no longer bows before fear. He does not live for comfort but for meaning. He does not wait for the right time but understands that the right time is now. He is already dead, so for the first time, he is truly alive.